Sounds good.
Yeah, you didn't add the kodesh.
Right, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
What do you say, Parrot?
You didn't add in the kodesh, not just
Oh, you didn't
Shabbos.
share
It's good
Shabbos
Shabbos kodesh.
Good Erev Shabbos Kodesh. Okay. These are some hard daf, let me tell you. These last few daf, they're really going out with a bang, man. Okay, so 6 lines down from the top. That's where we left off. Daf Lamed Ches, Amud Aleph. So Torah Shmar Zutra, no. Yeah, Torah Shmar Zutra, Allah Gurabashi. Oh no, yeah, fine. Amar Shmuel. 7 lines down on the top. So Amar Shmuel. Shor shel patam harehu kiragli kol adam. The shor of a fattener, that's literal taich, right? Somebody who fattens up animals. Harehu kiragli kol adam.
Like yes, Roy.
What do you say?
Yes, Roy.
Yisroy. Yeah, I hear. All right. So again, we were discussing animals or anything like that. Who gets the?
Yeah, wasn't there a big hakra? What's that thing that they stuff up the animal? They force feed it.
That's
Isn't that like geese or livers?
The shop again, it's called.
Yeah, that's the geese. Yeah, that's stuffed geese.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah,
I guess this is something like that.
Kobe beef. Kobe, they feed them beer.
I hear. So this is something like that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
stuffing an animal. Why isn't that Tsar Balachayim?
Which
Stuffing an animal.
stuffing and geese is a star balachayim according to the.
People are eating it.
exactly. That's the whole. That's the whole tumble with it. I mean, besides from making it treif, maybe. Right. So, but here it just sounds like the way Rashi says it. He fattens up the animals, the shore, in order to sell it. You know, the fattier, the better. So the thing is like this. So, meaning we're discussing what techum gets. So what the techum is. So somebody goes to buy an animal on Yom Tov, which we already discussed. That on Yom Tov you could go buy the animal. You just can't discuss money. So so how far can an animal go if you buy it? Does it go with the techum of the fattener, the cow fattener, or does it go with the techum of the purchaser? So the Gemara is saying that a shor shel patam it goes with the purchaser, right? Because since he knows that he's selling these things on Yom Tov, so it's almost like understood that it's going to be going wherever the feet can go, however far the owner, who guy that buys the animal go, that's where it goes. So that's and then shor shel roya hareu karagli also ear, but a roya, a shepherd for the city, so that can only go as far as the techum for the whole city, right? Because them, he's only for that particular city. See, in the first case, Rashi points out that it could be even a guy from a different city comes. It can go with his own feet because it goes for all over. But the roya, it doesn't work like that. The roya is usually for his own city, right? Nobody's going to come get a sheep from a roya from another city. There's nothing special about it. The shor fattening guy, he's got something going. He's got something special going. So somebody might come from a neighboring city. Yeah, so that's fine. So somebody who borrows a kli from his chaver on Yom Tov. So he said, if you borrow it on Yom Tov, if you borrow it on Yom Tov, so then it goes with the whoever owned it when Yom Tov started. So if you borrowed it on Yom Tov, it goes with the lender. If you borrowed it before Yom Tov, it goes with the techum of the borrower. So pshita, that's what the Mishnah says. Well, it says pshita. I mean, why should it be any different? You didn't hand it to him only on Yom Tov, meaning he borrowed it erev Yom Tov, but he didn't take possession of it until Yom Tov. Now the same Labra should say, okay, right? It's not in the borrower's property, but when Yom Tov came, so therefore he can't take it wherever he wants. He can only go with the lender. Kamash Malon, that since it was in the das of the lender to give it to the borrower, so then it goes wherever the borrower can go. We have a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Somebody borrows a kli from his friend on Erev Yom Tov, even though he only gave it to him on Yom Tov, goes with the borrower. So it goes after when you borrowed it, when you made the agreement, when you signed the agreement, right? When you didn't sign if you didn't sign the agreement till Yom Tov, or obviously you can't sign on Yom Tov, then it goes with the lender. But if you made the agreement before, then it would go with the borrower. The Yom Tov karagli amashal, but on Yom Tov it goes with the lender. Pshita, it's pashut. It wasn't lent till Yom Tov, so when Yom Tov started, it belonged to the lender, so it should go only where the lender could go. So like he normally borrows from all the time. Meaning he's a steady customer. Now the same Rishu say so you might think the lender has in his head, oh, I'm sure this guy's gonna come borrow an animal on Yom Tov from me, because he always does. So therefore, when the guy comes to borrow it, maybe the borrower comes to take it, it should go with his own legs, wherever he can go, because the lender has that in mind. Kamash V'lan, then it doesn't work like that. Maybe he's going to find somebody else and he's going to go borrow it from him. So maybe he's not borrowing it from me. So therefore, the lender does not have in his das that it's going to go to the borrower. Okay, fine. Then we said the last case in the Mishnah was a woman who borrows salt, spices, and water from her friend. Right, a very interesting chiddush. Right, if she goes, if she's making challah and she needs salt, spices, and water from her friend, so she puts it in there. Then the challah can only go as far as both of them. Meaning it can't go out of the techum of the one that baked it, and it can't go out of the techum of the one who owned the spices. Right? So Kisalak Rav Abba, when Rav Abba went up to Eretz Yisrael, Amar Yeh Rava, he said a tefillah that it should be Hashem's will. Daima Mills did the skabel that I should say something that the olam will be makabel, meaning he's going to be the new face, and he wanted to be able to say, so when he's new face, you say over what do you call it, shtickle Torah, right? So he wanted to say a shtickle Torah when he gets to Eretz Yisrael. So he hoped that the people will he won't be embarrassed. Rashi says he won't be embarrassed. Rashi doesn't say that he wanted to impress anybody. He just didn't want to be embarrassed. That's the way Rashi says it. So Kisolek, you know exactly what's coming, though, obviously, right? So ki ashkeske, right? Right. So Kisolek, when he went up there, so Ashkechel, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina bar Papi, Rabbi Zera. So they found those three. Why isn't it not batul? Meaning this challah was saying could only go as far as the one who owned the water and the salt and the spices, right? Why isn't it just batul? I mean, that's a small percentage of the challah. So why should that have any sort of rights for the techum? So Rav Abba said to them,
it's not going to be challah without that stuff. It's nothing.
Oh, so really that Gemara is going to say that in the maskana, that it's not, how can you call that batul? That's a main component of the challah. Right? It's interesting that the Gemara is going to say that in the maskana, but the Gemara doesn't entertain that now, which is part of why this next Amud is very complicated. Right? Yeah, so Amalu Rav Abba on Amud Beitzah. So Rav Abba answered them. He says, "Hareshin is Arav like kav chitin ba'asora kavan chitin." Right. So he says a specific case here. He says if a kav of wheat falls into 10 kav of wheat of somebody, meaning somebody else's kav of wheat falls into your kav of wheat, yochal halav v'chadi, are you going to eat it and then laugh that you got yourself an extra kav? Meaning if your friend's wheat, you're both picking up wheat from the store, and your friend somehow spills into yours, so you just say, oh, it's batul, and therefore, and you laugh and you say, look at that, I got away with something, right? You don't do that. So, and the reason why you don't do that is because bittul has to do with taste, right? It has to do with isser veheter. That's when something's batul. So if you have, let's say, treifa wheat, however that would be, falling into kosher wheat, so then you would say, okay, the taste is batul, and that's it. But here it's financial. Financial, we don't say bittul, right? If I steal something from somebody and I drop it into something else and say, oh, I don't have to pay you back, right? I don't have to pay you back because I dropped it into something and it's batul. Of course, it's not batul, right? So the same thing here, by the spices and the water and all that. That's not batul. This is not a taste thing. It's about where is the techum for this thing. So that's what Rav Abba tined. So Achiko Alei, they laughed at him. Amar lahu gelusaychu shakli hadur achichu alai. I'm sorry. Did I take your hat? I don't have any idea what that means. I mean, did I take your hat? That's why you're laughing? Right? So they and they laughed at him again. So I didn't understand. I mean, there's a lot I don't understand on this summit, but this part I also didn't. Even the easy part of it, I don't understand on this summit. Right? What? I don't know. Is that a joke? I guess what, you rip somebody's yarmulke off so you laugh? I don't know. Okay, fine. So whatever it is, so they laughed at him again. So Amar Lahu, meaning they did not like his teretz. Amar Lahu, so Amar Rav Aishi, a Shepard of it, they did a good thing that they laughed at him. How come he said an example of wheat falling into wheat? Why didn't he say example, meaning of wheat falling into barley? Because wheat falling in, there basically is something called min b'minoi and min b'she'ena minoi. You have one type that falls into another type. That's one thing. I mean, that's wheat into wheat. And then you have min b'she'ena minoi, which is one type falling into another type. According to everybody, min b'she'ena minoi is going to be batul. Right? If you put barley and it falls into wheat, and you don't taste any of the barley, then it's going to be batul. So we say shishim, however we go around with saying shishim, as long as it's 60 times more, we know that there's no taste. Right? But min b'minoi is a disagreement. Right? So why did he pick one that's wheat into wheat, that's a disagreement? Why didn't he say chit and sarim? Tavalu min b'she'ena minoi. Right? It would be a min b'she'ena minoi, right? Wheat into barley. Well, min b'she'ena minoi batul. And min b'she'ena minoi is for sure batul. Chitin b'chitin nami, right? But wheat into wheat, nihidul Rabbi Yehuda loy batul. Granted that according to Rabbi Yehuda it's not batul. The Rabanan miftal batul, but according to Rabanan it's batul. Right? Meaning, why is he getting involved in that particular din? Right? Why are you going? Why? I mean, he's getting involved with that din because he's comparing it to bittul, yeah. But why does he have to go with something that's a machlokes? Yeah.
What?
So there.
Why is the Gemara completely ignoring Tom here? We're going with pure bittul b'roiv.
Correct. Yes, that's what Rabanan sort of was asking too. The Gemara after is going to go with Tom. I don't know why the Gemara is. I don't know. That's part of this. It's a very complicated Gemara. This Gemara had to understand the Shakavatarya of exactly what.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, he was right. It would be batul. Min b'she'ena minoi is bittul b'roiv. Only in the Rabanan he needs shishim. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's good here.
Yeah, but it's still a machlokes. His whole point is his whole point was just trying to make is that when you have somebody else's food in your food, there's no such thing as bittul. That was his point. Bittul is for a taste type situation. You drop some treif into kosher, you drop some this into that. That's where bittul comes in. But if I steal something from you and I drop it into my chunk, does that mean, oh, it's bittul? I take a diamond. There's a good way to do geneva. Right? I take a diamond from you, I drop it into the chunk, say, hey, it's batul, give aldik, I don't have to pay you back, right? That ain't gonna fly, right?
How do you have Tom when you mix ingredients to make a challah? You have Tom, you're gonna taste the wheat, you're gonna taste the water.
Oh, so that's a good question. So then how exactly do you get Tom? So the salt and spices and water is a major component, in this case at least, right? In this case at least, it's a major component.
So that's why the Mandomer says water is the one thing that they're not makbid on. That would make sense.
That's what Rabbi Yehuda, right? So that's right. So that's without getting into Rabbi Yehuda, who says that water, the whole thing with water is nothing. So truth is water. You're right. It's really the spices and the salt that's more of the issue here. What are you saying, Rabban?
I mean, you don't have water. You don't have challah. What are you mixing? Just dry flour? What are you mixing?
Is the water part of your cheshbon?
I mean, half of Eretz Yisrael's fights with the Arabs is over water.
True. Aaron's why you're the challah expert here, right?
This case is a little bit different than regular bittul.
My question is that when you're doing a situation of rove, are you counting the water in your ingredient list to make a rove from it or not?
Right. No, that's true. You're right. So you would have to calculate it. But here, the whole point he's making, this much I understand from the Gemara. The main point he's making is that you don't say bittul by somebody else's property. So therefore, it's person A's water, salt, and spices. So that techum goes with person's A's techum. You can't say because you put it into a challah. That's what the Mishnah says, that this cholent can only go where both of them could go, because there's no bittul when it comes to somebody's property, somebody's belongings, to which they laughed at him. And Rabbi Shi is saying the reason why they laughed at him is because why is he bringing some sort of example of wheat falling into wheat? He should have brought an example of wheat falling into barley, right? So which is, so that's a little technical. So let's just see the next Gemara. So Amar Rav Safra, Moshe Shapir Kamred. Moshe, he says Moshe, which is sort of a lashon. Rashi says it's sort of like, it's not a shvua, but it's almost like what the Goyim say when they want to say an exclamation. What, you know what I mean? So you say Moses, the same like Moshe, right? Shapir Kamred, he's saying a good thing. Right? He's saying a good thing. Did you not hear what he said b'shem Rav? Let's say, so every silo you end with all the wheat, you end up getting pebbles and dirt and all that, which you then end up selling, right? Because that's included in the measurement. So if a guy goes and takes out all the pebbles, he's chayav l'shalom d'mei chitim. He has to pay that in d'mei chitim because he is really stealing from the seller. The seller, let's say, was selling 10 pounds of wheat. Of those 10 pounds, a half a pound is pebbles and junk like that. Right? So he would have, and that's expected to be part of it. So that's why it's not Geneva. And then this guy goes and takes out the pebbles. So now when he sells him 10 pounds of wheat, he ended up giving him an extra half a pound of wheat to replace the pebbles. So if a guy does that, we have to pay him the amount of wheat. It's meaning if somebody comes and takes the pebbles out, Alma kila chasre. Even though pebbles are worthless, why don't you say, 1 second, nobody's buying pebbles that are part of the wheat. But you see that there's a scenario where you could have pebbles that are really worthless that could end up costing somebody money, right? So here too, right? If you're going to say that the guy's salt and his water and his spices are batul, right? Then it's then that you're taking away an ownership of something. This guy did own the spices and the salt and all that. So you see that there could be something that seemingly should be batul, but it's not batul. Again, he's comparing the pebbles that are in the wheat to the salt and the spices that are in the challah. Okay, so Amar Abaya says, you can't compare the two cases. One, the case of the salt and the spices going into the challah, the lender is not tining for her salt and spices back. She said, I'll get it back after Yom Tov. I don't mind you having it gesundheit. Mashenkin by the pebbles, the seller's going to say, hey, you took out all my pebbles. Now you cost me wheat. Right. Yeah. Okay, so Amar Lei, so he told him back, and according to you, right, that the whole thing is tully and whether the person
that sounds like a hat trick.
Yeah, you're right. So Amar Lei, so according to you, the Tameich, Amar Rav Chisda, Nevela batul b'shchuta. So now we have another din, which we've had before. Nevela is tamei, right? Nevela meat is tamei. Right, shechted meat is not tamei. So now, what happens if you have nevela meat that became batul and shechted meat? They look exactly the same. They taste the same. They look the same, but just one is nevela, one is shechted. So now, is it metamas and not metamas? Is it batul or not? Meaning, is it min b'minoi because it's meat and meat, or do we say no? It's not meat because they're not the same because one makes you tamei and one doesn't make you tamei. The nevela makes you tamei. The shechted doesn't make you tamei. So again, nevela batul b'shchuta. If you take nevela and it drops into shechted meat, then it's batul. While the fishiyev shel shchuta shetasa nevela, it's not possible for shechted meat to become nevela. Once it was shechted, it's shechted. It can't be matama, right? Shchuta, but shchuta shechted meat Ain't a batul b'nevela. Let's say you have a piece of shechted meat that falls into nevela. That's not going to be batul. Why? Nevela meat can potentially lose its tumah status when it gets rotten. When it gets rotten, then it loses its tumah status. Right? So so here too, right? If we're going to say that the nevela has a baal, has ownership to it, it's not going to become batul in the part of meat, meaning it's not. It's a question. Are you going to say that if it has ownership, it's not going to be batul because it's all based on ownership? Of course not. Batul is not based on ownership, right? It's based on different types. And if you're going to say no, it is based on ownership, and then it won't be batul. Objects of hefker kind of shvisa, meaning if you have a piece of challah laying in the street before Yom Tov, no owner has it. That challah can only go 2,000 amas from where it was before Shabbos. So you see that an ownerless thing can get a techum, even though it has no bailam. It's as if it did have bailam. So we're going to say the same thing too, right? So therefore, since it has its own bailam, so even if you want to say it does go with bailam, any meat, the salt and the spices and the water are not going to be batul.
From the place he found it, or from the residence of the person who found it?
From the residence of what?
From the place he found the ownerless object, or from the residence of the person who found the ownerless?
No, I think it's from wherever it was found. From wherever it was found, it has its own owner.
At this point, it's hefker. There's no owner.
Yeah, so it goes with. I think it goes with wherever the object is. Now, if it's inside a house, I don't know if that would be hefker. Let's say it's in a shul. So does it go from where the spot is or from the edge of the shul? I don't know. So Amar Leis, and then he said back to him, are you comparing Isser to Mammon? Isura batul. We know that Isurim are batul, right? You drop something treif and something kosher, becomes batul. Mamayna loy batul. Money does not become batul, right? Yeah, but meaning what? Why can't we split the status of the salt and the spices in the water? Meaning for ownership, for bailus, it's not batul. But for techum, it can become batul. Meaning, what does bailus have to do with whether it's batul? Fine. Okay, so that's the back and forth that they're going back, arguing whether it could become batul. Fine. Finally, the time am I. Bottom line is, right? Why is it that it's not batul? So Abaya Amar Gezeira Shematasa Isa B'Shutvis. There's a Gezeira that you might make an Isa B'Shutvis, meaning, what's the difference between, let's say me and you will get together and make our challah together. So what's the din? That's for sure pashut that challah can only go wherever both of us could go. It can't go past where either one of us, because we did it as a partnership. So someone might say, hey, I lent somebody water and salt and spices for challah, so I'm a partner. And yet you would see that here it could go with the lender. So you might get confused. So therefore the Mishnah says it can only go, even if you just lent the spices, it has to only go from both owners, because we have to look at it like it's a partnership, even though really it's not a partnership. That's teretz number one. Rav Amar, and Taisa says that these terutzim are adding on, they're not disagreeing with each other. Rav Amar, tavlin tamei avidu. Like Dailam was saying, spices is for time. For time aloy batul. As we know, the rule is in Isser V'Heter, if something's put in for tam, it's not batul. Right? It's never batul. Which is an interesting thing, because really tam is batul. It's a big sugya. Unfortunately, we don't have time for it now. But everything is for tam. Right? When you put in salt into cake, you don't taste the salt, at least as far as I know. Right? Are we going to call that's made for tam? A lot of times you put salt into challah, you don't taste the salt. Is that called tam? You're putting it in there for the tam, but the ma'isa, you can't taste it. Right? So that's a big issue, whether that's called for tam or not. But the bottom line is, spices are put in for tam, and we know the rule is tam is not batul. So how could you say it's batul? That's teretz number two. But Rav Ashi Amar Mishum Davi le'davar sheyesh l'matirin. It's something that's going to be mutter, meaning why should you have to schlep this thing today on Yom Tov and maybe have a suffix whether it's asur? Wait till after Yom Tov and eat it. It's never batul, meaning we don't know whose techum this thing gets. So why, if I wait till tonight after Yom Tov's over, then there's no shaila anymore. So why should I be matir it? So for those three reasons, that's why it's not batul, right? Okay, yeah, I guess we'll stop over here. Okay, we'll finish to the Mishnah tomorrow night. I have no idea what time we're doing tomorrow. What should we do tomorrow night? Because those that go to Avos Abanim, and we got the West Coast, not the West.
10 o'clock.
Midi-
10 o'clock.
10?
10
Another
o'clock.
couple of weeks, Elio. Another couple
I
of
know.
weeks. I don't know. Should we do right after, or we could do mamish right after? That's gonna ruin.
Right
it
after
for
is
you.
perfect.
I know, but the Chicago, and the
Well, they
Indeed.
shouldn't live in Chicago. No?
Jack,
Yeah.
what about 8 o'clock?
Oh, really?
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Now that
Why,
we got our meat.
just because he sent this
We should all
delicious
go
meat
there
to
to
me,
show.
just because he sent this delicious meat to me, I'm going to change my mind.
You-
Right?
That's
You don't.
right.
You don't.
Yes,
you don't,
yes.
You don't
That's
give
a lot of times the
shaykhad.
way
You don't
things
give
work.
shaykhad, right?
That's the
You
way
know?
things work.
That's it. I don't know. 8 o'clock on account is the middle of us abundant for those that go to Avos Abanim. So
Avos Abanim started already?
in Shayashiv it started. So my kids haven't gone for 2 years, so I don't know if it's
Jackal,
gonna get.
since when
Yeah,
you
but the
want-
people that always
Since
claimed
when you go
Avos
by what they
Abanim,
do in Shayashu?
the people
Yeah,
that
well, I
always
had
claimed
to go
Avos
buy the
Abanim was a
prizes.
problem, it wasn't, because then they stayed an hour late anyway.
That's true. That is a true point.
So
Right.
I don't think that should really figure
And
into
you're
the time.
right. And Jesse, father of daughters, we know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have no idea who you're talking about, but I do like my my Macedonian name.
You what? I didn't
I-
get.
I don't know. I'm staying clear of that one.
Father of daughters.
Yeah.
It's like my caveman name. So what are we
Jack,
doing?
is
So
there any
what's
reason
the
to
answer?
change it
What
to
are we doing
8:45?
tomorrow?
I don't know. What time is it over, Chicago? What time is Shabbos
Yeah.
over for you?
1 minute. For me, Shabbos over, 7:18 here, 8:18 by you.
Oh, that's late. So
Right, is it?
that's right. Yeah.
Tell the microphone hurts.
My mother sends regards. She heard your voice, Ray.
And I said, that's not great.
Yes,
Yeah, that's me,
that's
I know
him.
my voice.
distinct
Yeah.
voice.
Sounds like his mother.
Yeah.
The babysitter.
There you go. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with the.
Okay, 8:30. No, 8:30.
8:45. Just do it regular already.
What was it? What we
Yeah,
do last
8:30
week?
will work perfect.
What we do last week? 8:30.
Yeah.
Truth is, it's
Yeah, they got
We'll call it
earlier and
8:30.
earlier.
Make
We'll
a
call it
11
8:30. 8:30. Fine. 8:30 it is. Okay.
Fine. All right.
All right.
Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos,
Good
everybody.
Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos. Have a good Shabbos, Kodesh.
Shabbos.
Oh, yeah.
Good Shabbos, Kodesh.